Welcome, I'm Eric with Vast Strength. In this video, I'm going to be doing a review and comparison of the Titan and Rep safety spotter arms. I'll also be discussing some other spotter arms that are on the market, and hopefully after you get done watching this video, you'll know whether these spotter arms or maybe some of the other spotter arms might be a good option for you in your home gym. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, or insights, please leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you like the video or find the information helpful, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. So let's get to it. The most obvious and important aspect of a spotter arm is to obviously spot you and is to provide safety. But they can also have other uses as well. Most notably, they can serve as attachment points for various equipment and power rack attachments. They can also be sometimes used in somewhat unconventional ways as possibly supports for lever arms or placing weight on lever arms in a way that can change the strength curve of the lever arms during a lift. So there can be other uses for spotter arms as well. Now, let's dive more specifically into these spotter arms, the Titan and the Rep. I first want to discuss some of the relative specs. I'll put the actual official specs up here on the screen, but let's just discuss them in general terms. If you look at here on the rack, you can see that obviously the Titan spotter arm is quite a bit larger and more beefy appearing than the Rep spotter arm. You can see here on the side that if you look, essentially the Titan spotter arm takes up about 8 of the holes that we have on our 2-inch spaced, 1-inch holes on my 3-inch Rep PR5000 rack, whereas they take up about 6 holes with the Rep spotter arm. So again, 6 holes versus 8. So fairly large difference in regards to the total real estate that they're going to take up on your rack. And that does come into play, especially with a lot of the more complex setups. If you're doing anything, for instance, with using lever arms to connect to, for instance, your pulleys on your power rack. So that's something to keep in mind. So having a smaller footprint is obviously a positive. The Titan ones are also significantly heavier in feel. Again, I've included the actual specs, but I can tell you just picking them up, moving them around, the Titans are noticeably heavier. As you can see, the length comes in very similar between the two at around 24 inches. There is a slight difference in regards to the design, with the face guard being present on the Titan one. Again, the concept being that it's going to protect your nose and your face or possibly your neck if you're using this one versus this. I can't say that's ever been something that's come into play or that would probably be an issue for me with the way I set up my spotter arms, but your mileage may vary on that. Both of the spotter arms are equipped with ultra high molecular weight plastic to protect the surfaces in which you have your bar. I would say I think the UHMW is probably a little bit thicker on the Rep, but I think functionally it won't make any significant difference. The feel of the UHMW on the Titan is much smoother, whereas the Rep one has more of a textured feel to it. Again, I don't know that I can say what the significance of that would be. Maybe somebody out there would know, which is why I mention it. But I think for the most part, the UHMW is essentially a wash and no significant difference between the two. Another important design feature to note is that the support on the bottom is much larger on the Titan versus the Rep. As you can see, that support goes out, only leaves 2 holes that are uncovered on the Titan, where it leaves 4 holes uncovered on the Rep. And when I mean uncovered, what I mean is it leaves part of the 3x3 tubular metal uncovered so that it's an area where you could, for instance, put some type of equipment or attachment. For example, I have this is my attachment for my Infinity arm, which is made by Exponent Edge. I love it. It's a great piece of equipment, but I don't have any way to attach it on here as it just doesn't give me enough room to do so. Whereas you might assume that since the Titan is a little bit more limited in regards to the essentially uncovered holes here that are available for attachments, that I'm going to give the nod to the Rep in regards to placing attachments. but there's a little bit more to it than that. And let me just kind of show you something here. So if we take one of our leg rollers, this is the Rep leg roller, and we attach it here to the Rep spotter arm, you're going to see that this tilted out quite significantly. All right. Now, it's not quite a fair comparison, so I'm going to have to do it on the opposite side here, because if I did it over here, it's never going to come off. But if I did it here, which would be the similar in regards to how it would affect it, you can see it stays. Now, if I add this second leg roller here, you're going to see that it's still staying. How about if we add well, again, still staying. So now you can get it to pop out here, as you can see. I was able to eventually get it to come out, but it's a little bit more stable. So as I just demonstrated, the Titan versus the Rep spotter arm is much more stable just in general with any attachments. The Rep one really wants to spin quite readily or quickly. Now, you might say, well, yeah, but the other one will too, so you can't trust it. And that's one of the differences. This has a hole that you can place a pin through, and now this one is going nowhere. All right, so that's great. And actually, I don't even like to use these typically. What my preference is for these little short bells of steel magnetic pins. I actually like to put it from the other direction, and just makes it easier to me. Part of that is because in my rack, when I'm putting it in from the back, I can hit the other cables. So I just tend to like to use the smaller one here. But either way, this one is much more stable. So you don't have the option to do that with the Rep one. There is no attachment point. All right. So that's one of the significant downfalls for me with the Rep spotter arm, is there's no good way to solidly keep it from moving. Now, I won't say that there isn't some things you can do. So for instance, if you take a pin and you put it in the right location, then it is going to block it. It has a little bit more play than, for instance, the Titan spotter arm, but it will keep it from spinning completely. But it doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy and safe like this one does. But keep in mind, if you're again using it just for a spotter arm and not putting other things attached to it, that may not be as much of a problem for you. You might be thinking, well, Eric, what do you really put on your spotter arms? Does it really matter that much? I almost forgot one of my favorite uses for the spotter arm attachments, which is a landmine. This one specifically is the Clevabuilt landmine, which is really outstanding. Obviously, there's lots of different attachments you can use with the spotter arm, but your mileage may vary in regards to how much you plan to use in your own home gym. So one other thing I want to draw your attention to, and this probably is more specific maybe to this rack, although may also apply to other racks as well, which is the way these essentially go on to the rack itself. So when we look at the Titan one, for instance, you can see it, when we come out, here's our pivot point. All right, so if I want to put this on my rack over here, on my upright, we put it on. It's got its pivot point at the top and essentially goes on like that. Now, you'll notice I have my cable from my Aries 2.0 pulley system here, my functional trainer. So here's the cable. So as you can see with this, I can put it on and I don't have to worry about interacting or damaging the cable. Now, as you may note, that same thing would not be true on this other side. It would get in the way on the other side. But the Rep doesn't give you an option at all because the pivot point is more central and it has metal on both sides. And so the way it goes in, you have to inevitably, you have to make contact with the cable to put it on, as you probably saw just right there. So that is a significant issue for me with this rack. Now, it doesn't always come into play because, for instance, if you have the pulley, the trolley down at the bottom, then you don't have to worry about the cable being in the way at all. The last thing I want to mention is price. These are priced fairly, I think, similarly, and my guess is will be priced fairly similarly in the future. But it's very difficult to discuss price presently, and because it changes so much, and anything I say today could be different tomorrow, let alone in a year or two when you may be viewing this video. So, but I think probably price-wise, they're going to be comparable for the foreseeable future. Let's get to the main point of this video, which is discussing which one would I buy, which one might be the right one for you to buy, as I think that's probably what everybody's here for. Well, that's a challenging question to answer, because it depends on what you're wanting to do. If you're really wanting your spotter arms to serve solely as spotter arms, you don't need them to serve any other purpose, then I might recommend the Reps over the Titan, just because they're lighter, they're more compact, so they're just going to be easier for you to use. Having said that, if you're planning on using any attachments or planning on putting anything on to the actual spotter arm itself, then I can't really recommend the Rep just because it doesn't have a good way to be able to kind of lock it to the upright. If you want maximum flexibility, therefore I would probably recommend the Titan over the Rep spotter arm. The other thing I think that comes into play is what power rack you have. And what I'm going to say is going to sound a little funny, but specifically if you have the Rep PR5000 with the Aries 2.0 functional trainer, I can't recommend the Rep over the Titan. That seems bizarre to say. As innovative as Rep is, I'm a little surprised that the spotter arms that they have don't work better in their own Aries 2.0 ecosystem. It's just a little bit surprising to me. Although, similarly, I have issues with the strap safeties as well, and I do not feel those perform well in the Aries 2.0 ecosystem either. And in fact, in that regard, if you wanted to buy strap safeties, which I actually think are probably the best safety options in general for these racks, I would actually recommend the Bells of Steel one to someone who was wondering. If you want to know more why, please let me know. It's probably something I'll do a video on at some point, but if you have any questions about that, please feel free to share them in the comments. When I say this, though, I don't want it to seem, again, like I'm a Rep hater, because I have another video on my channel where I was, pretty harsh, although I think reasonable in regards to one of my critiques for a Rep product. But again, I think Rep's great. I think they're very innovative, and I think the Aries 2.0 is fantastic. It's outstanding. It's the whole reason that I have a Rep rack and why I'm in the Rep ecosystem is because I thought the Aries 2.0, at least when I was buying my rack, was far and away the best option in regards to what I wanted for a rack with a functional trainer. So it's a great product. It's a fantastic product. And I feel like for the most part, it seems like Rep has been an innovator in this area. So it seems a little bit like dinging a gymnast who is going to perform a highly technical, highly difficult maneuver. And because they don't quite stick the landing, they score a little bit lower than somebody who actually did something that wasn't nearly as difficult or challenging, but they simply stuck the landing. So I guess that's kind of what I'm saying here. The Aries 2.0 is really fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. And it's the higher level of difficulty, but in regards to just the safeties, the spotter arm and the strap safeties, I just don't think they quite stuck the landing with those. So I just can't recommend buying this if you're getting into the Aries 2.0 system. Again, probably the best option if you're going to be just using spotter arms and you're going to be not planning on having a functional trainer and not planning on having any kind of equipment attached to it. But otherwise, I would recommend the Titan, and I'm actually very pleased with this. If I was going to buy again between these two, without question, not even close, I'm going to buy the Titan one. Is it perfect? No. Would I like it to be a little bit more compact? Yes. But it does most of everything I want it to do, just in a little bit bulkier, heavier package. How about some other options? Well, there are a lot of other options out there. I'll highlight a few that come to mind. There is Fringe, of course. Now, Fringe has a spotter arm that would be compatible with the PR5000 rack. And that spotter arm, though, at least as far as I understand, I think the spacing and the position of the holes is a little bit different. So it doesn't sit quite as centered. It seems like it sits a little bit more inferior. It has a little bit different mechanism in the way it goes on too. It's a little bit more like it goes on a little bit more like how a J-cup frequently will go on, where the J-cup kind of swings down or swings in. So it's a little bit different setup. That, again, will work reasonably well with the Aries 2.0 system. But that's something to consider. For me, again, I wanted to be able to use the attachments, and so I wanted it to be a little bit more consistent. Now, having said that, well, this big thing gets in the way anyway, so I'm not sure how much that would have been a problem for me. So the Fringe one might be one to consider, and actually the one on the Dane 2.0, which they don't presently have for sale separately, is a good option and is very similar to the Fringe one, except with a pop pin. So that's one you could, the Fringe one is one you could look at. The other one I would mention is the Bells of Steel and the Rogue ones. Now, those are Imperial racks, whereas this is an imported metric rack. And so those are probably going to fit a little looser, or at least it's something to keep in mind that it may fit a little looser. That would be something I would, keep my eyes open for if you're looking at the spotter arms. So the other ones I want to mention are, for instance, there's a PRX. Now the PRX, I think, is a little bit cheaper, and it is, again, 1-inch hole. By the way, all these I'm talking about are 1-inch holes for 1-inch hole racks, like the PR5000. The PRX one, I believe, though, has no holes on it. So you've got no ability to attach anything to it. So, but I think it is a little bit lower in price point, so that might be one that you would look at. Another one you might consider if you want to spend a lot of money would be there's Oak Club that makes a very interesting, I think it's called the Alpha arm. And then that's out of Canada. And then you also have the Surplus Strength safety spotter arms that are an interesting design as well. I'm going to specifically highlight the Surplus Strength ones. I think they call them their stealth spotter arms. They are a very neat design. They are much more compact, hence the stealth aspect. They go on in a little bit different way so that you don't have to worry about, again, conflicting with your cables. They are compatible with both metric and imperial racks. I think, and then because of the design, they have a lot more usable space on the spotter arm. So, thing is, though, I do know they're considerably more expensive. They're from a smaller custom shop, and they are American made. I think if I had to do it again, if I had all the time in the world, I personally would buy the surplus strength ones presently. Those would be the ones that I think are probably the ones that would fit my needs the most. But I tinker a lot. And what I mean is I use the spotter arms in a lot of probably unconventional and unusual ways. And so since I do that, I think I would find it more beneficial if I had something that had a little bit more flexibility than even this does. Again, this has great flexibility, except it's just kind of a big beast. And again, I'm limited with what I can do on the bottom here because of this large support. So for me, the price difference may have been worth it. And you might say, why didn't you get that one to begin with? Well, I almost did. So I initially bought the Rep one when I bought the rack. And then, as you can imagine, I was disappointed. So then I bought the Titan one. The reason I didn't buy the surplus strength one is partway the price and the cost. But also I was a little concerned about availability. I was extremely annoyed with the Rep spotter arm. I was very upset would be the wrong word, but I was very annoyed with it. And for me, it's just very difficult, like having that issue with the cables. It was just driving me absolutely bonkers. I just could not tolerate it. So the surplus strength ones would take a while to get in. So I decided to go with the Titan ones, as I could get those quite readily. I still probably would stick with that option, but again, if you put a gun to my head and said, which one would you get personally if you just had all the time in the world, I think I'd get the surplus strength ones right now. It is kind of a Richie Rich type thing to say, though. You say, oh, we'll get the ones that are super expensive. And I don't mean it that way. I think these are great and these are a reasonable price. But for me, one of the things that I don't mind spending money on is not only a product that's made well, but I think there's a inverse relationship between how many people are working or involved in a company and how much more money I'm willing to spend. Because, when you have some of these small shops like Surplus Strength or Black Widow Training Gear, Darko, Mutant Metals, these kind of smaller shops, and there's, maybe one or two people who are working in it, I feel I'm a little more willing to give my money to them, spend a little bit more than I otherwise would, because I feel like I'm supporting an innovator. I'm supporting someone who's trying to bring something to market. Now, that may sound a little bit self-serving since I have a small company and trying to design gym equipment as well. I guess it is. I guess it is self-serving, but that's not really what it's meant to be. It's just how I feel in general. And maybe it's because I appreciate what they're doing and that what they're doing is difficult. And so, in summary, if I had to buy again today, honestly, I might buy the surplus strength spotter arms if money was no object. But I think probably for the average person out there, I would think that probably the Titan ones, if you're using a metric rack, and specifically if you're getting into the Aries 2.0 ecosystem, I think I'd recommend probably the Titan spotter arms presently, given what's available out there on the market right now. I think the Rep ones are still good and they are a decent option. And I think they function fine as spotter arm to spot your weights. I just don't think they do as well in other regards. And again, I don't think work very well specifically in the Aries 2.0 ecosystem. If you have any insights, concerns, or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try to address them best I can. And as always, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful in any manner, please like and subscribe. Get strong, be smart, stay safe. Thanks for watching.